I'm very happy you are with us, and you arrived
Likewise.
now from the other side of the world. And as you know, the the main subject of the whole festival is contemplation and ecstasy, ecstasy and
Uh,
contemplation. So this is the main thing where all the programs will refer to. So of course, my first question to you: contemplation or ecstasy and contemplation. What does
uh,
it mean to you?
well, I think, as a musician and as someone who always sees himself as a student, um, there is so much contemplation that's involved, and at so many different levels. Um, as an Indian classical student and in Indian classical music, we have something called Guru Shish Parampara. So we first of all, before we start learning, we surrender ourselves to the guru, to the teacher. We almost surrender in such a way on saying, we admit that I do not know. You impart your wisdom. We believe them as to be as a source that connects us to the divine. And we say, we are ready to be molded, and you fashion the vessel as you seem fit. If you say sit in a certain way, I'll sit this way. If you say play in a certain way, I'll try to play this way. So there's a lot of contemplation, as and it could be, that look, I've been following your instructions for a long time, but I'm not hearing your music in my instrument. I haven't got to that stage. So there's a lot of what is wrong, what am I doing wrong, what am I not able to do, that I can't get to that ecstatic moment of hearing you in me. But I think, with years of practice and blessings, eventually there is a stage that is reached where you are no longer hearing a separate voice. When you're trying to sing, your your tone matches the one of your guru. When you can no longer hear the difference between yourself and your teacher, the moment is ecstatic. That moment is one of ecstasy. And it's one, it's a feeling as now there is no more me. Now there is just you. And I think, for me, I've not been able to reach that stage many times, but the few times I've been able to reach there, then yes, it's very blissful indeed. And I think, any pains, any suffering, any traumas, they're all forgotten in that blissful moment, as short as it can be. Um, those people who experience it, I think they can live a lifetime, thinking about the time that they were in bliss.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a very, in a way, a very musical, musicians and a spiritual answer. Huh? It is, for me, you can feel it's really the same. So contemplation is following the path of
Uh,
learning, and the ecstasy is melting with the source where what you are following. In this case, in your case, the teacher, the guru. So
yeah,
is you dissolve in the guru's whatever being in the end.
yeah,
So, and then this unifies you with everything.
yeah. I see. I mean, there's a saying by the famous Sufi poet Kabir, in which he says, "Tum karta, tum hua, मुझ में रहा ना हूँ जब आपा पर का मिट गया जत देखो tat तुम," which basically means that I would always chant your name, I would always remember you, and I would always talk about you to that extent where I became you. I
Mhm.
because you are my focus of everything. Now there is no more me. Now it's just you. So there's no Kabir, there's no Kirpal, there's just the Guru, there's just the divine. And I think we're all God's creation. He's made us all, and when we are able to realize this, and I learned about my spirituality, about my religion, even through music. And I didn't learn from necessarily from Sikh musicians only. I learned from Hindu musicians. I learned from Muslim musicians. But I find there's a difference between religion and spirituality. And the spirituality is what I learned through music, which made me realize, being at one, acknowledging that there is one, that is where the bliss is. That is where the ecstasy is.
So that's the goal of the spirituality is the bliss, the ecstasy.
Yeah, I mean, within any religion or any dharma, as they say, to get rid of the ego is the way of recognizing the divine.
Yeah.
When there's no more you, then there's only him left.
Yeah. Yeah, this is something maybe as Christians what we can remind that it was also in our culture, and it's a bit forgotten or got lost in all the religion that
there is so much. See, there's so much noise in the world now, so we don't listen as much as we should. But the message is always the same. The core is always the same.
But doesn't what you say? Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Being humble is the way. This is my way of getting everything. Yeah. So like, keep your hands together, pray, and always be willing to receive the blessing.
And the way you were describing your relation to the teacher, to the guru, doesn't it mean, I asking myself, who can you trust that much? Who can you see that much that you say, okay, this is really the doorway.
Yeah.
So how can you decide as a student, because you tried to judge something where you never have been? So, but you need to trust your teacher.
Look, what we do nowadays, Christian, if we were going to go on a holiday, we look at TripAdvisor, or we look at all of these reviews. Someone's been somewhere and they said 5-star review. That same destination, someone's given it a 1-star reviews. It's based on your own personal experience, but we try to gather as much information. And I would say, yes, be very particular about who you choose as your guru. If it means taking your time over selection, then there's no rush. Take your time. Don't just say, okay, I'll just go with it for a little while and let me see what happens, because the Guru Shish way does require a lot of trust. And I would say only give that trust when you feel secure in giving it. My personal self, my own journey, I was born into a religious family, a devout family. And I was what I was to a certain extent because that's what I grew up in. But, when you become a teenager, and, you can't just say, I'm doing what I'm doing because my parents did it. You have to discover that for yourself. Until I didn't find that connection for myself, I couldn't, say for certain, this is true or this is false. Once I discovered that for myself, once I had that interaction myself, that's when I was able to say with conviction that, yes, I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and I believe what I'm doing. I will point my own children towards the same direction, but I also understand that it's inevitably their own decision. Because to have that connection, to have that same journey, they have to explore it and discover it for themselves. You can't be something just because your father or something or your grandfather was in this. It's just like any profession. If your father's a doctor, doesn't necessarily mean you are going to become a doctor, or that you should even become a doctor. You should be open to becoming anything. But for me, it's a decision that needs to be made. Once you feel that this is the right person, I see the qualities that I want to be, I see the person who I want to be in that person, then yes, then surrender yourself. Don't bow your head to that person who's not who you want to be.
Good, fantastic. It's a very, very inspiring answer. Very, because also we in Western music don't have this guru, but idea of a teacher, which is so that is not this, the hierarchy is not as high, but still it is often easy to fall in a trap with the teacher, and this, yeah, that's a very good advice. Yeah, the way we approach this festival with our project was the different perspective on living in a dualistic world. What I see from the Indian view, or doing myself yoga, or practicing any spiritual practice, to what the German romantic hero, let's say like this, in the world, he is disconnected in a way, and there's no way to disrupt finally this being separate from the source they're coming from. And yeah, from the yogic tradition, there is a way. So in your resonance, so you just only need to shape your body, your awareness, whatever, but there is a chance to resonate with everything. So this living in a dualistic world, does it mean anything for you? Are you, despite of buying a flight ticket? So,
Look, yeah, I think, we all see this dualistic world in a very different way. I mean, the same world for someone can be beautiful. The same weather for someone, it can be, it could be raining, and someone might say, oh, it's raining outside. And someone might say, oh, beautiful, it's raining outside. I think it's your perception. And yes, there is, different views. And when we're saying dualistic world, I think this is often the cause of stress or, anxiety to some point, when we have to be something else. And then, and then we find ourselves actually wanting to be something else. I think before I took music as a full-time profession, I was working in a call center. I had a very comfortable job, and I knew how my life was going to work. It was go to the office at a certain time, it would finish at a certain time. I knew that this is the sort of world that that everything was secure, because I knew the bills would be paid. But I remember being, the time I was in the office, as as safe as I felt, that I'm going to get paid for the work that I'm doing. It wasn't me. I don't think I felt comfortable in being in that environment all the time. I couldn't feel like, this is me. I feel comfortable here. Whereas when I'm on the stage, when I'm doing my music, my music is like my sadhana. It's like my getaway from that busy life. So I found it very difficult to make the decision of becoming a musician full time. Even though I loved music, I never wanted music to become my 9 to 5 office job. That, look, I'm doing music now, and then I'm looking at the clock. When is this time going to finish, so that I can relax and be myself? But I think it took a lot of contemplation to me to realize that I was living in this dualistic world of being Mr. Panesar at work, and then being Kirpal outside of work, and just being me. And I think it's only through self, it's a journey that everyone has to kind of find themselves, where you think, who am I, and what do I actually want in my life, and why should I conform to someone's way of living? I should feel comfortable in who I am. And it's only when I started really asking myself, who am I, and what am I here to do? did I find, the answer. In that, I'm a musician. I'm an artist. I'm not someone who should be sitting behind a desk and doing the same office job. It's not it's not who I'm cut out to be. Soon as I let that go, and it was scary for me at first, because I was going into an unknown space, into a space where I didn't know where my next paycheck was coming from. But I had the divine belief, that if I take this step, I'm being who I was programmed to be, and everything else will work out. I just need to take this one step, and everything else will work out. I'm very lucky that I took that step, and I feel that I'm free from that dualistic world. Yes, we all get in there somehow. We creep into it every now and then, but I feel that coming out of that and living life as you feel, naturally, not conforming to any society, as you feel naturally, being free. I think that's what freedom is. And I think once you've got freedom, you can break out of this dualistic world, and then you're not bound down to within that duality. That's what I'm trying to always achieve, not always able to do so.
Of course, the easy said, different to do. Like, oh, the important things. So living in a dualistic world, the one point is to for you to gather all parts of you which are going in very different directions and capacities and abilities, and to to put them into one view on you, being not this, but this, but this, but this, but finding the place from where you say, okay, these are all parts of myself, but this is the center where from I gather the things and
Mm.
I have the overview. Is it somehow, or yeah, but this is a center where everything aligns around, even if there are
Very.
dualistic tendencies in it, but I'm the center of it, and that shapes all together. Could be said like this.
I love the way you put it, actually, and I think it's very important to have that bird's eye view of yourself.
Mhm.
To look at yourself from a third person's perspective,
Mhm.
which is very hard to do, because it's okay when someone's saying something good about you. You kind of are happy to agree, but when there's negative feedback, or everyone has negative traits, to realize these and accept them and understand those urges or feelings, it's very important to do that, and you're only able to do that if you step away, and again, put your ego to one side and see, these are my so-called flaws,
Yeah.
and understand, if there's an urge there, that urge is not to be suppressed or to be quashed. It needs to be understood. It needs to be understood, and I think, once we're on this journey of self-reflection, that's when we're able to understand this dualism,
Mhm.
and focus on that middle, that center point within ourselves, to get the true definition of who we are.
It reminds me a lot to one of my favorite speeches of Jira Krishnamurti, who is insisting in the observer is the observed. So if you observe it, it's you. There's
Yeah.
no separation between, and that makes it maybe a bit easier to accept my dark sides. So, because yeah, it's not only me, but it's yeah, it's the whole thing, and I'm just a slice of perception between the inner and the outer world, and the
Wow.
inner world is the outer world. It is same. So this is just a small thing, Christian Binde, like a curtain that reflects by hazard in this way. So
Yes, beautifully put. Yeah.
yeah, well, thanks a lot for this deep answer. And of course, super curious for me as a musician is my third question, which would, yeah, somehow as a musician, I'm always feeling that somehow ridiculous. that we don't pay enough attention to it, because it's the question about the phenomena of listening, of hearing. So, what would you like to say something about? I don't want to give any, but what does
No, no. See, for me,
listen?
I remember myself before being initiated into music. I was one of these type of people who could not sit still. I could not focus on anything. We used to, when in the mornings, my parents would play a sermon that was from our old guru. It was an old cassette, maybe in the 40s or 50s, been recorded. From then, and we used to hear it, and there was so much background noise. There were so many car horns, people talking, and I used to be wondering, what are you guys listening to? I can't hear any speech. I can't hear anything. I can only hear this, like the sounds around it. I can't hear it. They would say, sit down here and listen to the sermon. One for a start, it was in Gurmukhi, it was in Punjabi, which I wasn't very well versed when I was very young. So it felt like it's a foreign language, and that too with such a bad like quality of recording. What, I can't hear anything. And then obviously music started in my life, and took over very quickly, became the center of everything, and just having this discipline, which started from a point of fear. I must confess, I was scared of my teacher. I was scared that he might get angry. He might say, because like like I was learning in India, very in a rural place, and I was like, he might get angry and shout at me. Touch, like, I'm very thankful he never did, but at the time I remember I was very scared that he might get angry, and so I would do exactly what he said. If he said play this, I would play until he said stop. If he went out the room for an hour, 2 hours, I would still play. I would not get, like, I was, that he might be listening in the other room. So I was very, I developed this discipline, through fear, it must be said. But once I developed that, with that discipline, I would say, when I came back from that training, the first time I came back from spending time, maybe 6 weeks with my guru, and I came back to the UK and listened to that same recording that I could only hear the horns and the background sound. I could hear the sermon. It started making sense. It was because my mind was, paying attention. My mind was no longer running around. It developed this, stillness. And I was amazed at the sound, because we used to listen to that same cassette very often. And I was like, hang on a second, has somebody edited the sound on this, or has something been done? Because I can hear the words now, and it makes sense to me all of a sudden. And that is one thing that I found. That's the start of this, the miracle of music for me. It made me hear the sounds that otherwise are happening all around us, happen all the time, but we don't stop to appreciate. It's only, I remember when we had the COVID time, where everything stopped and everyone looked up and looked around and appreciated nature, the sounds of the birds, the sounds of nature. Before that, it's always there, it's always happening, but our mind is running around so many different directions. We can't hone in onto those sounds. We
Mhm.
can't lock ourselves onto those frequencies. But I think that needs to be developed, and it needs to be, and then appreciation comes after this. I used to listen to, music, Western classical, Indian classical, Bollywood, any type of music. I only heard the lyrics, or the big banging drums and things. I wouldn't hear the little intricacies that were happening. When I started to learn, when we gone through this training in music, you would have to listen to, how does my guru go from one sur to the other sur. There's thousands of ways from going from one note to another note.
Mhm.
Yeah, it could be ga ma da da or it could be ga sa ga ma da da ma da pa. And I would have to hear, what has he just done there? Because unlike Western music, our music is taught audibly. We have to listen. There's no written music. We have to listen to what he's played or what he's sung and think, okay, how am I going to recreate that sound? So I had to really hone into what was happening. It's not like now I can pause, rewind, and play again, and it was happening in real time, so I had to catch it very quickly. And because of this training, and again because of the blessings of my teacher, I started understanding and appreciating the sounds that were happening around me. And so now when I listen to that same music, I hear so much more than just the loud instruments or just the lyrics of the singer. I listen to all the little things going around, which makes it what it is. And I think with that is what with the appreciation comes. Listening is everything. If we can become a good listener, then it's a big achievement, I think.
Okay. It is, for me, it's very interesting after you are now the fourth interview I'm doing on these questions. And so for you, in a way, the quality, so listening one thing is just what comes to you without any, it's just coming to you. But so true listening, that means in one way diving deeper and make a differentiation of the sounds. And somehow the moment you arrived somewhere, listening, it was where you could give a meaning. So true listening would be giving a meaning to the sounds coming to you. Could
That's
it be
right.
like this?
I would say so. I agree with what you said there. Once we can, like put a source to where that sounds come from, or you can understand that nad, that this sound that's just come, how's it come, and what does it mean? Like the meaning behind it is what listening is.
Mm-hmm.
The more we can recognize, I mean, this kind of training for us is like something that we say surgyan, recognizing the note. If someone's playing a C minor, you should be able to recognize this as C minor. It's you should be able to quantify and recognize, the sounds that are coming. Where are they coming? How are they coming? I think once you are able to do that, a picture is created in your mind, and you're able to come to a conclusion as to why it is what you're hearing, and able to appreciate what you're hearing, the message behind the music, which is very often lost.
Yeah. That's I totally agree. It's interesting for me. That's the same for you in Indian music, because exactly this is the point. What we are discussing a lot about how we sound and whatever, but somehow the meaning beyond it. That there's a message, like you said. Yeah. So what is the message and how we focus on it? Yeah, Kirpal, fantastic. I'm very grateful that you. I know that it was very difficult to find this appointment, and that you are really in between the worlds in a way. We are all not traveling, but you are traveling really a lot. So that you found the time to give us this half an hour interview. And
No, it's a pleasure of mine. Whenever when I'm talking to you, I realize, it gives me a chance to introspect and do all the things that we've been talking about. So I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to the festival itself and to meeting lots of beautiful people like yourself. So looking forward to it and very thankful.
thanks a lot, Kirpal. It's a wonderful upbeat to our cooperation. Yes, we see you on the 26th in the morning.
Thank you. Take care.